my name.
Despite what you said?
Yes, he gave my name, even though he assured me that he was not going to do so. He gave my name to government, and what he found shocked him. He was forced to come back to me to tell me what he found.
Which was?
He said, after submitting my name, the then head of state looked at him and said, Professor, you are a great Nigerian. If I had asked somebody to go and look for someone to be given a position like this, he would bring his son, his brother-in-law, his cousin, his nephew, whatever. Say, you have gone out of your state
to look for
into another state to bring somebody because you know that this person will do well. So he now said yes. Said it, the head of state now told him, sorry, but this is not the kind of person we are looking for. So he now said, what do you mean, sir? This is not the kind of person you are looking for. He said, no, this is not the type of person you are looking for. What will happen is this. When next we have an appointment, please remind me, I will give it to this person you have brought.
Oh.
So he was trying to convince the head of state that, no, that I'm very outstanding. The head of state said, no, I know him very well. That is not the kind of person
we're looking for.
We're looking for.
Uh-oh.
So Aluko came back to tell me that I don't understand this country anymore. See what. So I just hit a sigh of relief that I didn't really want to go.
You didn't want to go
yeah.
anyway.
So the head of state remembered Aluko. And so the slightest opportunity he had, he sent my name to ECOWAS.
Okay.
And I was posted to Liberia. To go and conduct that election. That's the story to it. Coming back from there, I didn't go back to any electoral commission, so I couldn't really bring any impact, so to say.
Yes.
But there wasn't really any difference between what I saw in Liberia and what had happened in Nigeria.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, Liberia at that point wasn't a stable country. They didn't have resources. Nigeria had to spend its own money to ensure that that election was done. Everything there was Nigeria. The ECOMOG was Nigeria.
Yes.
The Electoral Commission was Nigeria. Everything was Nigeria.
So it was a case of Nigeria just running.
Just ensuring that Liberia doesn't die. Right? So people like us are really always conscious of that. That's why sometimes when people are rubbishing our soldiers, I tell them, please don't do this because this is not how our soldiers are seen outside here. All right? And Nigeria was a great country. Our military was respected everywhere. You know, the vehicles we used to go to work from the hotel to the Electoral Commission in Liberia had a Nigerian flag. And when I'm going to work, they don't even know who is inside. The fact that it's a Nigerian flag, everybody has to stop.
It's
for that car to pass. Right? So that was how great Nigeria was. And so for me, really, we couldn't compare Liberia here because they were deficient in quite a number of things. We were merely going there to help out, to up their game so that they can have what looks like a semblance of election. For example, Charles Taylor, who won the election eventually, was the only person who had a radio station.
In Liberia.
In Liberia. There was no other radio station. So with
no competition.
With what do you contest? Will you campaign? Which medium? All right. So it was. Yeah. So I got back to Nigeria to make this report halfway through, and the federal government provided resources for resuscitating the Liberian Broadcasting Service, so that it can be a government station, and those were the kinds of things that were done, and I think to a large extent it worked well, and I remember that Liberia gave me their own highest honor for all that I did, and I'm grateful to God for the opportunity.
Yes, indeed. I mean, you're one of the people that they will hold so dear for helping to bring positive changes to their society. And that brings me to your time back in NOA as a Director General between 2002 and 2003. And from the little I know of your time there, it looks like you laid the foundation to a large extent. You caused a national reorientation of the psyche of Nigerians, preparing us for what, the NOA has become today in terms of changing the psyche of Nigerians and understanding first and foremost that we owe it a duty, not just to ourselves, but to this great country, Nigeria. How did you come about that?
Well, thank you very much. I really wouldn't know whether the accolades you have paid now are deserved. I don't know what transpired, but I do know an area where you are right, that I didn't stay that long there. But I was conscious of the purpose for which that organization was established. Value orientation. Unfortunately, the reason why today the kind of mark you're talking about is difficult to achieve is because the administration is focusing on political reorientation.
As against?
Yes, as against value reorientation. And the general working attitude there is about what government will like. If we do this, government will like it. And it's not only orientation. Even your NTA, you do exactly the same thing. You want to do what you think government will like. Meanwhile, you don't even know what government likes. And I think that's the whole thing about self-censorship that goes on all over the place in most institutions. You keep talking about what government will like. The government didn't tell you. In my days, I never allowed anyone to tell me that this was what government said, because I was sufficiently senior enough to know what government was saying. And if government wanted us to do X, I also had the courage to go back to that government to say, these are the repercussions of the X you want us to do. If we do it, you will hear what you want to hear, but the public will not watch. They will not listen. And so government somehow grudgingly listened and allowed me to carry on with how best I thought I wanted things to go. And in those days, it's not as if we didn't do any political reorientation. We did the one man, one vote. We did this. If somebody asked you to come and, do political violence, ask him to bring his child and all of that. We did all of that. But we were also more interested in doing the right thing. And I think one of my successors in national orientation brought that up and even made it a motto: do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
So it becomes the right thing both in politics, in economics,
as a way of life, generally.
As a way of life. Right, that is it. That is it. We even campaigned that government should scrap the environmental sanitation Saturday because we were arguing that by doing that, you are making people believe that it's only one Saturday.
Only one Saturday they should clean their environment and their homes.
Yes. So those type of things make it their own pattern of life, make it their habit, and not just make it like a military thing because it was brought by the military.
By the military.
Let's now do persuasion. Let's now do conversion.
Give it a human face.
See, that's it. So, and I think those were the kinds of things that worked there. But just before we leave Noah, I'm using the opportunity to tell stories today.
Please go ahead.
The day I left Noah, I had just arranged a send-forth for all Noah Directors General before me who left without any send-forth. So I arranged to give everybody a send-forth. And we started working towards that. We had sent out invitations. They were all in town already, and so on and so forth. The thing was fixed for 2 o'clock.
Okay.
At 11 a.m., I was appointed DGNTA.
Hold on there, sir.
So I became one of those they were sending forth that day.
The day you were to have the send forth for your predecessors.
I became one of those.
You became one of those to be sent forth.
Yes.
How did you receive that?
Well, how else? I didn't even understand it because I was busy making some programs for the NLC that was on strike over fuel subsidy and all of that. And when we were holding a meeting, people came and called me and said, "Okay, come, something is happening. They're announcing your name somewhere." So, and I came back to the office and I saw that all my staff were wearing very long faces. I said, "What's the problem?" So, are you not aware? I said, "What is it?" And nobody was even able to say it. Everybody was looking sad. So I went and sat down and was watching. In 5 minutes, the news was repeated. That's how I heard that I was going to NTA that day. So I became one of those they had to send
forth. So you were also sending yourself forth.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So it was an interesting.
I'm sure it must have been an interesting one. Wow. And then you came to take over the reins at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, as Director General. coming back, that would have been coming back home for you. And I know that in your time at NTA, there were quite a lot of innovations, changes and all that you brought to bear. But before we go into the individual achievements in NTA, your success in NTA, because you were one individual that didn't seem to care whose ox was gored. All you believed in was doing the right thing. What was it that was responsible for the successes you achieved in NTA, considering the fact that you were a government appointee?
Well, I think the first thing I will say to this question is that everybody has a constituency that brings him into office. If you got into office because your kinsmen went to beg for you, when you get there, your priority will be how to help your kinsmen. Right? So if you got in because you are secretly a member of a political party and the party assigned that to you, you'll be more concerned about how to help the political party. But you see, I came to NTA, as far as I'm concerned, by merit. And so I regarded merit as my constituency. And that means that anything that didn't have to do with me, he said that to me. And because I know that I didn't lobby, it resonated well. I understood what he meant. So for me, really, if I see two things, I will do the better one. I will do the correct one. Because that is what is merit. That is what is merit. If you don't do merit, you cannot say you stand for merit. And so for me, when you say, oh, I always did what was right, it's because I came in by what is right. And I think that I will always give it to the administration I worked for. It was a very interesting administration. So many things about the administration that are different from my personal experience. For example, the impression that I got before I became DGNT was that President Obasanjo was not reachable. All right? You couldn't really reach him. You couldn't even talk to him. And he doesn't listen. He just shouts at you and all of that. So they created that fear in everybody. But on getting to NTA, I discovered that it was direct opposite. Yes, it's direct opposite. Each time the president wanted to do something, and I gave reasons for why it would not work for NTA, he conceded.
Just like that.
That shocks me. That, you mean this person can concede?
The person who was said not to be reachable.
Yes, you mean he can concede. Not only that, anytime I did anything that government felt was good, I got not only a letter of commendation, I got a personal call from the president thanking me for that. Especially when I established NTA International.
Yes.
The president personally called me and asked me to come and see him. And I went there and he asked me, what do you want us to do for you? I said, nothing, sir. If only you can just come and commission it. So he said, is that all? I said, yes. No, that's a minor thing. I'll come. And that made President Obasanjo the only president that ever visited NTA. From inception till today. All right? Because nobody could really bring the president. Not because NTA was not worth it, but because what you can bring the president to NTA to come and do is also in the villa. There's a studio there. So where are you taking him to? So
it must be something outstanding that he can't get where he is.
The president kept talking about it, and so all of those things encouraged me. And maybe President Obasanjo is not like that to other people, but he was like that to me. And I found it quite easy working with him. Yes, and each time I said something about what we couldn't do, he sometimes would get angry, but after listening, he would say, oh, is that so? And I would say, yes, sir. And he said, okay, that's all right. I remember there was a case in Bauchi where the governor had gone surreptitiously to pay for live coverage to our station in Bauchi. And you know that live coverage is a national thing.
Yes, headquarters.
Yes. Yeah, you can pay there, but you need national recognition of what you wanted to do, because we are the ones to send the UB van, we are the ones to schedule and all of that. And I had said, nobody should accept payment Well, live transmission that will go into 9 p.m.
Of course.
It's not of course. The reason why I say it's not of course, I have seen once or twice occasions where news had been preempted. All right? But you see,
the 9 o'clock news.
That's a criminal offense in the profession.
The 9 o'clock news.
Yes, you cannot preempt it no matter what is happening.
Exactly.
So here was the president about to speak in Bauchi, live program at 10 minutes to 9. And I knew that it was going to go on if I didn't go to the studio myself. So I went to the studio, I took control. And when it was 2 minutes to 9, I got the continuity announcer to say, we are moving off from here now to bring you the network news. We'll come back to this program after that. But you know, not many will hear that. So the government people didn't hear that. So they'll say, we told the president to remove this guy. He didn't hear.
Goodness.
How can you cut off the president of the nation? You cut him off when he's speaking. They went on and on and on. And the next day I was summoned and met President Obasanjo, and he said, he's not even angry that I switched off or that I left this program. But what he's hearing is that they paid for it. And so it was a contract. How could you have broken a contract? Why did you accept money?
When you knew you couldn't
take. So, and I told him that it was the governor who wanted to ambush us because he had no business going to pay in Bauchi. And even when he paid, I sent a letter to say, this program must end at 8:45. The president said he wanted to see the letter. So I got the letter and I showed him and said, okay. Then he now asked me, what is special about this your 9 o'clock? And I explained it. And I drew his attention to the fact that when the news is preempted at 9, there are people who think there has been a change of government.
Of government, yes.
And it can be really, really dangerous. And that it's not done anywhere. And that he is man who travels here and there. Should find out whether it's possible to preempt news. And it's not possible. Well, I don't know whether he tried to find out, but he never said anything about it anymore. And nothing happened to me. There was a second chance where they wrote a letter, a press statement, and they said the president had directed that this press statement be read unedited at 9 o'clock. It was brought by the special advisor to the president and he insisted.
Unedited?
Yes, the president said it should just be read. We should not add, we should not subtract. We should read it and it should be the first thing at 9 o'clock. So, as soon as this happened, my news people ran to me and said, sir, we're in trouble. I said, what's the problem? I said, see. What was the story? The president sacked a minister and made some very big policy statements about housing. And that led to the sack of that minister of housing. When I saw it, I said, no, this will not go on air. And it will not go on air at 9 o'clock. It will not. What can go on air at 9 o'clock is minister sacked as a heading. But when the time comes for reading the story, our story must be written in a manner that you call television language. Television language cannot be intemperate.
Yes.
You cannot be violent, you cannot abuse, you cannot quarrel with anybody. Just make your point. So I rewrote the story and got it read the way I wanted it. Reduced it from about 6 minutes to 2 minutes as it should be. And as soon as the story was given to the newsroom, they read it, all the news people realized that there's going to be trouble. So everybody left the station.
Oh!
Yes, everybody left the station. And I waited. And then nothing happened. The next day, everybody was waiting. This is when the thing is going to happen. We're all expecting a sack letter, an announcement that I've been removed. And I got a call from the president. And he said, Tony, how are you? I said, fine, sir. I said, this story about so and so. I'm told you are the one that wrote the one that we saw. I said, yes. I said, we need to be consulting you when we want to write. You know, your story was very, very catchy. Well done.
What?
Yeah.
And as against?
Yeah. And that was it. So everybody ran away, ran back, went back to their seats, and the work continued. Right? But you see, the truth is that it was a risk. Not many people
would have taken that risk.
Take that risk. I'm happy that the government of the day always turned around to see that what I said made more sense than what had been put on ground. So the message is that people should stop self-censorship.
Censorship, yes.
That is the message to our people all over the society, especially anybody in government service. Self-censorship is not the best because you can't defend it in due course.
In due course. One of your greatest achievements, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, was the establishment of NTA International. Looking at television broadcasts at that particular point in time in those years, what was it that gave you the impetus? What was it that gave you the encouragement to go ahead to put NTA on the map of the world in terms of broadcasting?
But there are several things. The first was my own personal lifestyle of wanting to improve whatever I meet. I met NTA singing itself as the station whose reach you cannot beat. All right, so if we have gone that far in the country, where else should we go? Of course, we have to go international. And that was one thing we could easily do, but nobody had the political will to do it. So I thought that should be done. Secondly, and more importantly, the story at the time was that the whites or the Western world was always looking down on Africa. They were always carrying stories of flood in Mozambique, some
negative story.
Yes, some negative story in Mozambique and this and that, human this. So, and I said, look, why don't we tell our own story ourselves? And so it's not enough to tell the story. You have to create a channel for telling it. And I thought that creating NTA International will give us a channel to tell the rest of the world our own side of the story. So they can now look at it against the kind of things they have been saying. Because for someone like me who had been in the system for so long, I never liked this European attitude towards Africa. My attitude to African issues is that rather than bemoan our fate, rather than quarrel that, the Western world is not projecting us in proper perspective, we should project ourselves. So I had that feeling. And I thought I could conveniently do it, especially at a time when the internet was just coming in and you could use it, you could do a lot of things with the facilities available. NTA had 8 OB vans.
Yes.
And they were all packed in one venue. And it looked like a motor park. But by just distributing those vans to different parts of the country, we were able to create more than 8 channels for NTA to get to the rest of the world.
Yes.
Why not do that? And we did, with ease. So today I can sit down and say, I started NTA International, but the facilities for doing it were there. People before me just didn't do it.
And of course, apart from NTA International, hitherto before you became the DG of NTA, maybe just Lagos or even Abuja were running 24 hours. But when you became the Director General of NTA, you created zonal centers. Most stations of NTA were running 24 hours. Now, is it still a case of the political will to do these things, or you got some greater measure of support from the government of the day for you to be able to achieve all of this?
Well, let's put it like this. If by greater support you mean financial, I didn't. In fact, I got less than my predecessors used to get. In my time, there was no capital grants given to NTA. For the 5 years that I was there, NTA got 0 allocation. And the reason was because NTA did not know how to lobby. We did not know how to go and beg some legislators to give us monies and then we return some of it to them. So we never got anything in my days. All right?
But you made money.
Yes, that's different. You are talking about internally generated revenue, but I'm talking about government allocation.
That ought to be.
Yes. So when that allocation never came, it was an impetus for me to look for how to survive. And I went into introspection. I went into what are the strengths of NTA, and I realized that we can really garner huge sums of money from adverts, especially at that time when we were the only ones everywhere. So, and we're getting far more money than government should have given to us.
Oh.
So we had enough money to do quite a lot of things. So in the area of money, I didn't get anything from government. All right. I also am grateful that I didn't make the mistake of telling government to let NTA be on its own.
Okay.
And then pay the salaries by ourselves. Because if I had done that, it would have been difficult for NTA to exist today. Because the circumstances have changed. But in those days when I was DG NTA, I had so much money that I was able to pay 13th month to all staff as reward for hard work for the year. I was able to give rice to every staff. And when you say rice, not cup, a bag of rice to every staff. Because the resources were there. And these resources were things I did on my own. I set up a team and we got it from government.
Okay.
You see, before me, when government brings an advert, they don't pay. In my time, you have to pay.
You make them pay?
Yes.
How?
If you don't pay, I won't show it.
But you would have stepped on a lot of toes.
So many. And they went to report me. And I was able to tell those they were reporting me to that they are reporting me because they didn't pay for our service. And if you know the kind of president we had at the time.
Yes.
So when you go to report me, the president will ask you whether you have paid. Then you know he has an idea. I think there was somebody who went to report me to the president, and the president asked him if he had paid. He told the president that I didn't give him invoice. So the president asked him, do you want to come and collect it here? So on the day of NTA International,
yes,
I publicly commended the government for paying for our services. And people were surprised. All the live coverage that was done in my time
were paid.
Yes. The office of the president paid for all the live coverage that NTA did for government. And it wasn't small. But at that time it was about 6 million. So we have resources. But that won't happen now because you are not going to be able to beat your chest and say we will not cover if you didn't pay. Because the circumstances have changed. Different. Yes. The circumstances have changed. And it's not about who is there today. It's about what has transpired
over time
till today. It's not the person there today that will solve the problem that was brought 4 years back, 5 years back, 10 years back, you know. So that kind of, you start a problem without realizing that to stop it will be a really big problem in future. So that was the kind of thing. So I had all the resources for doing it. But more than the resources, I had this belief that every month I should be able to tell government something new that I've done.
Okay.
That was my own method of targeting.
Okay.
So each month I will go to the meeting and I will say, this month NTA stations that are on air now have moved from 42 to 46. Next month I will say has moved to 47. Like that. And so at the point at which I was leaving NTA, there were 68 stations on air.
Yes.
And they were doing 24 hours. If you didn't do 24 hours, I will invite the GM of that station to come to my office, to come and work in my office, and I'll send somebody else there who can do 24 hours. So everybody was up and doing. So that's why I say circumstances have changed. But I think that those were the things that helped me, and it helped me to do some of the things I did. Stepping on toes, like you said, yes, but the only thing about me is that each toe I stepped on, I never knew the toe was there. It's not that I was looking for a toe to step on.
You were just doing.
I was just stepping. I was just stepping on the normal path to where I'm going. So if you put your foot there,
well,
I will step on it and get to where I'm going.
So where you're going. And coming to you, given monthly reports on your achievements in NTA, I recall also that you weren't just a director general. You continued to produce and even present. You produced Scorecard. You were presenting Point Blank. And of course, that was vintage Tony Aradia. Who would take on anyone and everyone without mincing words. How easy was it for you to combine all of this together, bearing in mind that the whole of NTA rested on the shoulders?
Well, okay, thank you very much for the good things you have said. What it takes to do it is not as hard as people think, because in the last couple of minutes, that's exactly what you have been doing. You have been asking me questions the way you like, right? You have been following up your own way. If you are hiding anything, that's between you and yourself. So what I'm saying really is that I don't see the reason why you should be scared of a question you want to ask. I think you should ask your questions and follow up. The purpose of asking those hard questions really was to create room for more information to come out, for everybody to really know what is happening. And that was why we did that. But more importantly, Point Blank was supposed to be a signature tune.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that when you as an individual watch NTA and you see the Director General asking government officials tough questions that could create problem all over the place, then you know that NTA is nowhere to go and fumble. You don't go and talk to NTA people anyhow, because you know that they have a Director General that tear you to pieces. So those things were deliberate. They were strategic, you know. And so I decided I must continue to do that program, because that was the program that brought me to limelight. I started off as an interviewer, so I ended up as an interviewer. I also believe that when you are posted to management positions, it shouldn't stop your capacity to exhibit your professional potentials. It shouldn't. Yes. If you are a professor and you become a vice chancellor, does that remove the knowledge of the discipline in which you are a professor?
No, it doesn't.
Once in a while, you should go and deliver a lecture. Not just deliver a lecture, you should deliver a lecture in a manner in which everybody will say, oh, yes, this person is a VC. All right? So when I ask questions on Point Blank, many of my staff will say, yes, this is the DG. And I did so in different parts of the country. I remember I went to Kaduna once to interview some people, and I asked the local interviewer in the place to sit down just by me so that he can see how it goes.
Yes.
And when we finished, I asked him what was his impression. He said, the things that I asked, they don't know them here. And I was asking about Kaduna, and he said he didn't know them. So I said, what does that tell you? He said, it means we don't do enough research. I said, great. That's the first thing. But great interviews, you must do research. You must have all the information that are relevant to the person you have invited, so that when he is going off the line, you can bring him back. Yes, I say, no, this is what we're talking about. So those were some of the issues really that made me say I must continue to be a professional. And so when you begin to accuse an NTA staff for doing X, Y, Z, you yourself, you are conscious of the fact that his Director General was doing worse.
Still talking about NTA and her presence all over Nigeria. One thing that I know, yes, we've had the industry liberalized and we have a lot of television stations around now. But one thing I know for sure is that the strength of NTA lies in her terrestrial transmission. But we also know that the whole world is going digital, and we're having the digital switchover here in Nigeria. How do you see NTA being able to hold her own, bearing in mind that our strength lies in our terrestrial transmission?
Well, I think that in the next couple of decades, as much as that, both systems have to be kept.
Okay.
You can't move away from the terrestrial because development is not taking place in the same way all over the world.
Not at the same level.
Yes, quite often we keep talking about America in a country like ours that doesn't even have a public transportation system. So when you talk about America, you should be looking at the level of development, and you must think of that before you begin to say other things. So for me, really, you are talking about digital transmission. What has happened to the digitization process? People like us who are outside should be asking people like you who are inside, what have you done about digitization? They say we're going to open some handover stations or whatever they call them. How many have been opened? Out of 37. Have we opened 4? If we have not, why are we so positive about digitization? So I think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. That's not to say digitization is not good. It's the latest, it's the modern thing, it's the global reality. Best practices presume that we should do that. But there are many things to be done before you get to that level. And if they are not done, there will be a problem. For example, content development and production. And that's what I think the NBC should really focus upon at this point in time. Some time ago, the NBC decided how many percentage of transmission should be local. How many should be foreign.
Yes.
And it achieved a lot. They need to go further. They need to go further to give more targets that can push people.
Okay.
They also need to register content providers. They are a different kettle of fish. A television station does not have to be a content provider. What is happening right now is that the stations are being used as content providers. But we can have content providers and create jobs. And so people who don't work for anybody, they just create content. We need to encourage them. But that's not all now. So we need to do more
in terms of content creation. Now, one of the major achievements, your major achievements during your time in NTA is also the fact that you were able to bring all political parties to the table. You gave every political party equal space, equal opportunities to be heard. Were you not in any way worried that you might have been seen not to be too supportive of the government of the day, the ruling party of the day?
Thank you very much. This is one of the best questions you have asked today, because it reminds me of things that have happened, and it is supposed to also teach lessons. And this is the right time for it, because we are entering the campaign period now, where people will be demanding space. Good. Two things are important. The first is that everybody is entitled to your space by law. All right? The second is that you must be fair and balanced. You cannot give party A 11 p.m. to 1 p.m. and give party B 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Both of them are 1 hour. All right? Or 2 hours, as the case may be. But one is in the middle of the night when there's nobody watching. The other is in the prime time. It's not equal. So it's not enough to provide the quantum of space. It must be balanced and equal. Now, coming to how difficult it is to do it, you have just made a point. What did I do? Before the time, I had written to government to say, politics is coming. This is what the law says NTA should do. This is what we want to do. These are things we have put down. And nobody replied me. Because as usual, government people don't read anything. Okay. But I wanted to be on record that I said, this is what I'm going to do. So when the time was approaching, I took my team and visited all the headquarters of all the political parties in Abuja. And each visit was televised. And the message was that we are under obligation to give you space to educate Nigerians on your policies and your manifesto. So if you don't take it, it's your fault. And everybody was surprised. Federal government station, they said everybody's entitled as well. And I was invited to government to come and explain, why am I doing this? And when I had explained, I was also asked to look at the implication. Are you saying that the ruling party should not have an advantage? And I said,
the others.
And I said, exactly, that is what I am saying. He said, is that fair? Don't you think the party's people will be very angry? They might say we should not. So I now explained that it would be wrong for you to allow a law to say that we should grant equal opportunities to everybody, and to use strength and might to stop us from granting it. Because that means that we are going to be breaching the law.
The law.
Maybe the lawyer in me played a role there, but I insisted, and I kept singing that we cannot have a law that says give equal opportunity, and we have an administrative directive that says don't give equal opportunity. All right? So everybody saw that there was some problem, and they started using different methods, different coercive means to say, okay, but you have to also help us. Don't forget we are the ones that put you there, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but that's a different matter. And when the time comes, I won't be the one doing it. I'm not the producer of those programs, but I will insist and tell my staff, this is what you must do. You must give all the parties equal opportunity. Now, what is the meaning of equal opportunity? Equal opportunity does not mean that if you don't take yours, you are still entitled.
Once you've lost it, you've lost it.
So people must understand.
And it will be on record that you lost it.
Good. So it's not just equal opportunity, but equal competence. If you are not working, if you are producing 3 rallies in a month, and somebody is producing 18, do you want us to show only 3 of the person producing 18 because you were only able to produce 3?
Definitely not.
So equal opportunities is objective.
Yes.
The capacity of each political party will also determine
whether what opportunities they get.
So for me, really, I never allowed all those little steps that were being taken to politicize the system. And like I said at the beginning, it's all about politicization. Once some people in the system got there through politics, they will play that game.
They will play the game.
Yes.
And not, the way it ought to be.
And not the merit, yes. They will play that game.
Professor Tony Iridiam, you are retired. But obviously, from the little I know of you, you're not tired. And so, it's been one thing or the other. How has life in retirement, quote unquote, been for you? What has it been apart from being within the academia?
Well, retirement doesn't mean idleness. What it means is that you cannot continue to do the tedious job you have been doing. So for me, I think anybody who has retired should try to do other things. And what I decided to do is to pay back to society the gains I made in my career. And I found the best way to do so to be to impart knowledge by going to the academia to tell people what it takes to be in broadcasting. In fact, I'm enjoying the opportunity of making people recognize the difference between theory and practice of broadcasting. Yes. And that's why I have taken to that, because I think that's the only way I can say thank you to society for all that I got, because not many people can get to where I got to by merit.
By merit.
By merits. Not many people can get there without having somebody pushing them. But I didn't have anybody pushing me. And the story I keep saying to everywhere, if you go to my file in the NTA, from page 1 to the end, there's something you will not see. You will not see letter of promotion. Because I was never promoted.
No.
This is a good point for ending this interview. I was never promoted.
How do you mean?
I never received any letter of promotion.
Yet, you kept moving.
But there are many ways of being elevated. Promotion is not the only way. Promotion is what you get when people are looking at how long you have been there. And whether, I don't know whether to use the word, when it is your turn. Right? So you get promoted. But you can also get elevated without following the promotion line. If internal and external applications are required from people, you go for interview. If you get it, you get it. All right? So you get elevated. So all my life, I always got elevated. I never got promoted. Because to get promoted sometimes can include whether you greet people in the morning. But to get elevated involves how best is this, how good is this person able to do this? What are his credentials? Do they sound well? Are they good? What has been his background? what has been his, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Tony Iradia, OON. It's been an enlightening time with you, because you've really opened my eyes to a lot of things, even though, yes, I worked, as one of your staff then, and you were the DG, but my eyes have been opened to quite a lot today. Thank you very much. I have been speaking with a man who has been elevated all of his life without one single promotion letter. A former Director General of the Nigeria Television Authority, NTA, and that's why this conversation holds so dear to my heart. And of course, he is a professor of broadcast management and media law. That's talking about Professor Tony Iradia, OON. I do hope you've learned a thing or two from this conversation, and you know more about NTA, how it operated then, even our electoral policies, and Nigeria in general. Let's do this again same time on the network service of the NTA, talking about executive discuss next week. I am Ololade Adeniji Adili. Keep believing in Nigeria. Bye.